Well, from humble beginnings to one of the most well-recognized brands in the world, the Justin Boot Company, the standard of the West since 1879. It's nice to have you with us. I'm Steve Kenyon. Let's talk about a brand new film the Justin Boot Company has produced. It's called The Standard of the West, and it highlights those values, that heritage, and those traditions. And today we have an opportunity to spend some time with some Hall of Famers and spend some time with at least one gentleman who I know understands the standard of the West better than anybody. The great Red Steagall joins us in studio. Red, welcome. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. Proud to be here, Steve.
So let's talk about, here's my thought. The cowboy hat and cowboy boots are maybe the two most well-recognized symbols of the Western way of life. Am I right in saying that? And the Justin Boot Company's been a leader.
You're right in saying that. And the reason the cowboy has such a tremendous image all over the world is that he exhibits three things that everyone would like to believe that they exhibit. That's independence, individualism, and freedom. And the silver screen did that, but the cowboy, the real cowboy, was the heart and soul of the image. And Hollywood taught us a lot about the cowboy we didn't know. But the cowboy is the image of freedom. And I like to say he's a hard-riding boss of the range. His trade is a fair one. He fights for what's right, and his ethics aren't subject to change. And that still exists today. And nobody exhibits the standard of the West better than the Justin Boot Company and the heart and soul of where it came from and where it is today.
Red, let me ask you about the history and the heritage of the Justin Boot Company. This is, we say the standard of the West since 1879. We're talking about a century and a half of leadership and family and great product.
When the railroad got into Kansas and we could move those cattle where we needed to, because the whole country was just full of cattle down here and no market for them, just a hide and tallow, and it was worth about $1. And then when Joseph McCoy opened the cattle pens and the hotel, the Drover Hotel in Abilene, Kansas, and we started trailing those cattle north, we saw an image of people that we had never seen before. And they were young people mostly. And they had to have some equipment that was conducive to not only surviving, but doing a good job in this trail they were going up, because most of them had never been up it. And there was a fellow named H.J. Justin who was born and raised in Indiana. His daddy was in the cigar business, and he always hoped that H.J. would take over that, but that wasn't his deal. He wanted to make shoes. So he came to Gainesville, and he started making shoes and learned what he thought he needed to know. And he went over to Spanish Fork. Now, Spanish Fork was not on the Chisholm Trail, but it was close enough. In fact, it was the closest merchandise place where the cowboys could go and get supplies, and the chuck wagon cooks could get supplies. And he got a job in a barber shop. And first of all, he was just sweeping the floor for the barber. And the guys would bring boots in, and he got to looking at the quality of them and realized that he could make a much better boot than that. And so he started making their boots and taking orders as they went up the trail, and then they'd pick them up on the way back. And it grew from there, and they moved to a larger market, which was Nocona. And from Nocona, they came to Fort Worth. And the first people to have mail order boots. And so it has been the standard of the West since 1879.
We're in North Texas right now. North Texas has been pretty central to the Justin Boot Company and that history and heritage.
Well, from where we're sitting right now, Steve, at any one given time, there's a big prairie out there. And at any one given time during those years, there'd be 10,000 head of cattle bedded down out there waiting to go to Kansas. Took a lot of men, and they all wore boots because they needed the protection for their feet. And Justin filled that need at a time when nobody else was doing it, really. And I don't know what kind of shoes they were wearing before H.J. Started outfitting them with boots. But it was a grand time for the cowboy because that boot, kept his foot in the stirrup, and first of all on a bad horse, and secondly protected him from the brush and the water.
Red, we're about to hear a poem. Tell me about it.
Well, Mr. John Justin Jr. was one of my best friends. And he and Jane and Gail and I spent a lot of time together, and we had a lot of wonderful experiences, and I thought the world of him. And I got to thinking about what that boot might say if it was real. I don't normally write things about inanimate objects. I like to involve people in them, so I made myself the voice of that boot. And I'm really proud of the poem, and I hope that it did Mr. John justice.
Just in case you're curious what Red Steagall sounds like as the voice of the boot, let's take a listen right now. Here's Red.
I was made by H.J. Justin out along the Chisholm Trail. He stitched my seams and did it all by hand. He made me for a cowboy heading north to Abilene, and still today, I'm proud to say I wear the Justin brand. We crossed the Red and Cimarron when they were deep and wide. The rivers changed my color, but they didn't hurt my hide. Yeah, I've been roughed up plenty, but I want you to understand that I ain't scared of nothing, 'cause I wear the Justin brand.
A look inside the Cowboy Channel's Justin Studios in Fort Worth, Texas. We're talking about and premiering today a film, Justin, the Standard of the West. Joining us is Nicole Ott, the marketing manager of the Justin Boot Company. Welcome.
Thank you for having us today.
So tell me about the purpose, the reason behind this film.
Yeah, so back in December of 2020, so almost a year ago, the Justin marketing team got together and we wanted to put together a multi-year, multi-channel campaign with the goal of telling our brand story and showcasing our long-standing history and heritage in the Western industry, but also with the goal of telling and showcasing, highlighting the character and the high standards set by our ancestors, those cowboys and cowgirls who lived before us, and they paved the way for us, and show how that's lived out today through everyday people in our industry.
You talk about how the Standard of the West is lived out through folks in our industry. Today we're going to meet one barrel racer, two bullfighters. There's a Super Bowl champion linebacker who's also involved in the film. Tell us about those folks in the selection process, how that came together.
Yeah, so we, of course, we wanted to look at those in our industry that lived out those high standards, and we wanted Justin athletes. So we started with Dusty Tuckness. Dusty, he is always putting his best foot forward. He is in constant pursuit of God, and he lives throughout his training. He does CrossFit training, and through that, he's in top physical form, so he can be out there protecting those bull riders when they need it most. So that was Dusty.
Right.
And then Cody, he is always in constant pursuit of excellence through what he does on his ranch at home, living out the lifestyle every day, to the camaraderie he builds within the rodeo arena, both inside and outside of the arena, and just his passion for the industry and the sport. And then also, he gives back so much through his annual bull schools. So we really wanted to make sure that he was a part of the short filming campaign.
And you've got the top money winner of all time in the barrel racing business.
Well, this one's for obvious reasons. Sherry Servey, she's the perfect image of what a cowgirl, how a cowgirl should live. She lives with integrity. She brings so much to the industry. She does her youth championships to give back to the industry.
You know, the thing about Sherry is, you mentioned everything that she's given back. This is a 20-year tradition, and you want to talk about a family background with the Justin family? Sherry Servey comes from one of the greatest family backgrounds you're ever going to meet.
Yeah, so her father was at the first NFR several years ago. He was a calf roper. He went to several NFRs. Her mom went to 3 NFRs as a barrel racer, and they live the lifestyle. They have a place in Marana, Arizona. They also have a place in Wisconsin, and a lot of people don't know that her family owns a cranberry farm up in Wisconsin. When we started this campaign, we did not know that cranberries were grown in Wisconsin, so we had the opportunity to go up and visit her at her place.
Tell me about the guy who is, I guess, maybe not the cowboy in the group. Devin White, Tampa Bay Buccaneer, Super Bowl from 1879 to 2021 and many more years to come. When your marketing team was talking about putting this film together, did you talk about the growth and the development of the Justin standard through the years and how it has continued to be one of the most well-recognized names, products, logos in our industry?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time going back through our archives. Our graphic designers spent a lot of time digging up different memorabilia, print ads. We found awards that John Justin received. The actual campaign, one of the inspiring moments for us was one of our co-workers, Tom Feller, had brought up a quote that H.J. Justin had said years and years ago, and that was that he hoped to leave behind him an institution that would uphold the standards and the spirit of the true West. And so that inspired the marketing team to look to that brand tagline, which is Standard of the West since 1879, and then that's what we were like, oh, we need to do a short film around this, we need to do a campaign around this, and we need to showcase those that live that out today.
Nicole, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nicole Ott, the marketing manager of the Justin Boot Company. When we come back, we'll tell you that story and talk about the Standard of the West since 1879. We're coming back for the Justin Boot Company in just a moment. Well, the new campaign is called The Standard of the West. Today, we are proud to debut the film, The Standard of the West, celebrating the history and the heritage of Justin. Let's take a look at Justin, The Standard of the West.
There was a standard that there was to be a cowboy and there was to live this life, and there's honor in respecting that standard and that spirit of the cowboy in the West.
The morals, the everything that went into the cowboy way of life is what got us to where we are. And you know, if you really look around, there's still a lot of that around still in this day. It's harder to find. I think those guys were just guys that, I mean, there's no other way to explain it other than they were cowboys.
The West has changed, and the cowboy has come a long way, but he still selects his boots with pride. Justin, the standard of the West since 1879.
The cowboys and my ancestors have influenced my life in so much, and I just think about what they went through 100 years ago and the sacrifices that were made and the hardships and just getting from one place to another, and you know, going even 50 miles in a wagon. It's humbling to think about what was done to get us to where we are in our Western life today.
I think a lot of credit goes back to the old school cowboys.
Nice job, Cody Webster. Oh my!
We can actually make a living now being professional cowboys, and we wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for them guys back then going off of a dare to who could ride a horse longer or who could rope a cow quicker, or you know, doctor or sort, whatever the case is. Without that, we wouldn't be where we are. I grew up in Wayne, Oklahoma. It's just a small town, rural community, a stop sign and a little store and a post office. That's about it. Maybe 1,000 people. That's where me and Ashley have our ranch now, and that's where our roots are. bullfighting was just something that was in me from the time. I think God put that into me when I was born, you know. I always had my eyes and you know, always paying attention to the bullfighters, the rodeo clowns, and Mom would always catch me in there using her lipstick, painting my face as a clown. And
He's gonna go up and over right now!
to get up and do a job, somewhere around 180 performances a year, you know, if you break that down, that's fighting bulls every other day of the entire year. It's easy to go do that on a weekend. You know, it's easy to show up and be at a 3-day deal and step in and take a bad shot, and then knowing you only got to get through one more day or maybe 2 more days, and then you've got a week to go home, or maybe 2 weeks, or maybe you've only got 2 shows a month, whatever goes on. But to be doing it 180 times a year brings a lot of cost that a guy's got to be willing to go through, and everything that comes along with that, the travel grind, I think really defies who we are and what we stand for and what we believe in.
What I think it takes to be a champion is just your effort and your determination. I think consistently pursuing excellence. The day that you kind of hold back and are content with where you're at, that's the day that you start falling off.
That's his best trip. Sometimes he goes left and he's got Bingham loose.
I always kind of want to have a vision and mindset of pursuing excellence. You know, what can I do better today from what I did yesterday to make me even better for tomorrow? Hard work and self-discipline is what it takes to achieve certain things in life, and I think that's the mindset of a winner and a mindset of a champion that you need to have, because they're always going to raise the bar. They're always going to work hard, and also it's a reflection and to the younger generation of, if they're looking up to somebody, you know, over time they see how you carry yourself and what your work ethic is like, and that trickles down. So consistently pursuing excellence and not being content with where you're at. So I grew up in a small town in Idaho, in DuBois, Idaho, and I lived there through elementary, junior high, and then I moved actually over to Wyoming my freshman year in high school to live with my dad, and kind of more so to pursue the rodeo career. Growing up was great. Both my brothers played sports, I played sports. So we were outdoor type family. We were always camping, fishing, hiking, you know, tubing, doing anything in any type of season. So I grew up in the outdoors, in the mountains, and hunting and fishing, and you know, as I reflect back on my childhood, and I loved every minute of it. And you know, I was involved in 4-H and the Scouts, and went through different programs there to learn how to survive in the wilderness if needed to be, or learn how to, you know, catch and cook my own fish and hunt, and always entertaining around the household. And my mom, just one of the most caring women that I know in my life. She's been there for me from day one to this day. For a long time, she was never thrilled that I chose the bullfighting world.
Here we go. Looks to the left. Got against the wall. Can't make it. Now comes around. He's got a good seat. He's pumping. He's gonna come. Now the bullfighters are earning their money. They are earning their
But over
money.
time, she's got a piece of it, and she enjoys it. I think maybe just as much, if not more, than I do. And my dad, that's really the big loophole that I got into rodeo. He fought bulls for a lot of years, and he still works the barrel a little bit to this day. And but I started going with him in, I think, '96. I'd go with him in the summer and go experience different rodeos, different events and venues. And so he's always been a great supporter. He's, you know, mentor me in the rodeo parts, and you know, always try to help me out when he could. And he always keeps up with my whereabouts now. And just like I said, both mom and dad, a lot of great love and support. You know, they've done pretty much everything they possibly could for me in my life. And you know, I know we live in a crazy world, and a lot of people expect things given to them, but I was always raised to work for what you get. And you know, there's going to be good days, but there's also going to be some bad and tough days too. But you know, you can't sit and fret on the past. You keep working hard, and put your best foot forward, and what you put into it is what you'll get out of it.
is here tonight.
Some of the standards that I carry over into my training or my competition on my horses is the love of animals. I think, that's come from 100 years ago of people, respecting and appreciating what animals bring. I wouldn't be here without my animals, and, I do expect a lot from my animals, but I expect a lot from myself too. And I want to work hard, and I, want my horses to work hard and try their best too. But I also appreciate what they've given me, and you never take anything for granted. I think that's one of the biggest things that in life itself, but you can't take for granted of what you have in the horses that I've been able to ride. I've always, as a rider, tried to have really good hands when I'm asking my horse to do something, not be too forceful or heavy-handed. And I honestly tell myself a lot, mind in the middle. And I think, being a balanced rider is so important, especially when you're going, as fast as you can, and then you're changing directions, not getting your horse off balance where they have to wait for you to catch up. And so I've just really tried to be a balanced rider, and I work at it. I think at a young age, I was put on a lot of different horses just to ride and learn. I rode bareback and, just being a kid. And but I do really feel like being a quiet rider is really important. When I think about the Standard of the West, I think about the camaraderie that they would have had with each other, and that you have with your neighbors, that the respect, the family values that were established, and the importance of family to people of the old and today, and it's passed on through generations. My parents have influenced my career a lot. My dad made the NFR, the first NFR in Dallas, Texas, in the calf roping. My mom made the finals in the burro racing 3 years in a row in the 70s. Rodeo was never their profession. It was kind of something they did on the side, but they both loved to compete and have competed many, many years. And that's where I got my love of competition, is from both of them. And my dad still competed up until his late 70s. My family has been in the cranberry business for many years. It's been part of my life. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, my dad does not own Ocean Spray. He grows cranberries and sells them to Ocean Spray, that is a co-op. And so he is a shareholder, and there are, hundreds of shareholders. And so that is something that, I always have to correct people when they say, I knew I wanted to be a barrel racer at a very young age. I honestly never thought I would have the career that I've had, but I did want to make the NFR one time, and that was my goal from being, 10, 11 years old. I would play on my stick horse, and I wanted to be running down the alleyway at the Thomas and Mack. And I've made it 19 times, and they all are very special to me.
Back and jumping and kicking right down in front of the chutes. Oh, wow!
It's just a way of life, it's the morals. You don't have to be a cowboy to actually be a cowboy in my eyes. I mean, somebody that works hard, somebody that is always caring and putting their best foot forward, and being somebody that just overall cares about people. I think you got cowboy in you for that. And there's no other way to really explain it, I don't think, other than it's just a good-hearted person that wants to work hard and do good.
That's the first time we've had a chance to see Justin, the Standard of the West. A lot of great thoughts, a lot of great wisdom, a lot of stories in that group of lives you just watched that can apply to everybody, whether they wear a cowboy hat for a living or not. We're going to take a time out. When we come back, the three people you just heard from who are all, I think, going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. Dusty Tuckness, Cody Webster, Sherry Servey, they will join us in just a moment. Well, you just saw the feature film, Justin, the Standard of the West, celebrating not just a boot manufacturer, but the standards that make the boot manufacturer, the people that represent their products and their company, and really those of us that live the Western way of life, that love this way of life, what makes that Western way of life so special? Joining us, three of the people you had a chance to enjoy in that film. Barrel racer Sherry Servey, 19-time national finalist and 4-time world champion, the #1 money winner in the history of the WPRA. Bullfighter Cody Webster, he's going to his 9th NFR, the 2020 Bullfighter of the Year in the PRCA. Dusty Tuckness, 13 times to the national finals and 10 times. He's won that Bullfighter of the Year award. I said before the break, I think all three of you are going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. I hope I'm right. Sherry, let me start with you. You get a phone call from the folks at Justin. They say, we want you to talk about the Standard of the West, the standards that make the West special. What went through your mind?
I was very honored to be a part of this film, and I feel like the Western heritage is a big part of my life, and if I can maybe portray it, what it's done to influence my life and my career, I was very happy to be part of it. And these guys did awesome, and watching that film, I'm very proud of it.
Cody, how about you? Same question.
Just as Sherry just touched on, just to be able to live the life that we get to live, and being a part of just such a great company, the Justin, there's no better family to be a part of, and this is my 10th year rolling with these guys, and they've been there every step of my career. And the old saying of, put your cowboy hat on, put your boots on, and try to go to work. I think that can go so much further than just what we do as cowboys. It's something that whether you're having a hard time in life or wherever you're going in life, put your boots on and get to work and do the best you can.
Dusty, you know what I learned from watching that film? And I've always known that you and Cody and so many of the best bullfighters going up and down the road right now are very involved in physical fitness and very involved in being dedicated and determined to be a part of their craft. I didn't realize the workout routine. I knew you had a workout routine that is pretty strenuous. I didn't realize it was as strenuous as it was. What do you think people learned about you from watching what they just saw?
Man, I don't know necessarily what they might have learned about me, but I think it's a great reflection on the Justin Boot Company. The word that stands out is a standard, and standard is a level of quality, of excellence that you pursue day in, day out, from the moment you wake up and slide your boots on to the time you lay your head down at night. I think it's a great reflection off the company and what they've done in our lives and careers to help sustain us and keep us going up and down the road each and every day and every year. And we're just thankful and blessed to be a part of this brand and being able to represent them.
So as we talk about standards and we talk about excellence in the Standard of the West, Cody Webster, we saw some video of you as a kid. It didn't look to me like you were much more than 10, 11 years old fighting bulls or fighting steers at that time. Who was your standard? Who was the person of excellence that you looked up to?
There's a whole group of guys that I've got to give back to wanting me to aspire to be a cowboy and get to do the things that I get to do nowadays. And if it wasn't for Lane Frost and that film 8 Seconds, when I was a kid growing up, that was something that came out that just really, really hit home. And moving on forward with my career, at 10 years old, showing up on Frank Newsom's porch with a pair of cleats, he took me in and started showing me, how to work out and how to train and how to fight bulls with this bullfighting dummy. And then pretty soon I'm 11, 12 years old, 13 years old, sneaking out and trying to go get in front of bigger, hotter bulls. And, there's a lot that nobody knows about that went on, but it's just something that's been a part of my DNA and something that I've enjoyed since I was just a baby. And it's just such a cool experience, looking back now, I don't know what my mom was thinking, because I see the films and the pictures nowadays, and I'm like, what was she on? Like, this ain't right, you know. But I'm thankful, and I wouldn't trade anything to change.
Sherry, you grew up in a family. I mean, we just saw the history and the heritage. Mom and Dad, both national finalists. We have watched you in your chosen industry your whole life. We also saw pictures in the film, women riding bucking horses. I mean, there is really a foundation of women in rodeo that set a solid standard for decades before you even had a chance to show up on the scene.
Oh, there absolutely is. And when you think about, you go to the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, and those women that, you know, in the 1920s, they were riding bucking horses at the Letterbuck in Pendleton. And,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, the history that women, you know, have in Western industry and, you know, the standard of the West, I mean, there are examples that when I go there, I'm inspired. I want to be better. I want to make, you know, what I'm doing and how I came into the industry, I want to try to leave it better than, you know, when I got into it.
Well, okay, and that leads me into my next question, and it's for all three of you, and any one of you can start here. You all have had the opportunity to give back, to teach the next generation. Sherry puts on some big barrel races. You guys are involved in schools. What can you take out of your career and your experiences so far, Dusty, that you like to share with kids, that you like to share with the next generation?
I think you just touched on it, you know, is giving back. You know, there's so many influential people in my life that gave me a chance, gave me an opportunity to try to pursue this as, you know, as a career, a full-time career. So I think that's just part of it. Part of upholding the standard is giving back and showing the proper way to handle business and handle your career and handle yourself inside and outside of the arena. So I think I reflect back on that a lot, is looking back on those that took the time out to give me a chance, and I think that's just part of keeping the standard fresh.
Cody, do you and Dusty ever teach schools together? You guys ever get a chance to show the next generation of bullfighters how to work together?
Yeah, we've got to do a couple camps together up in Cody, Wyoming, kind of the stomping grounds for Tuck. That's where he got started and rolling, and it's just neat. I mean, just as he's touched on, just to be able to give back. But I know, like, just having the bull schools and having the younger guys coming around, you know, for me, I know at some point, somewhere, somebody's going to show up that it can save their life. And not just in the bullfighting side of things, but in life in general. And I know for me, just as far as a kid getting just an autographed picture from, you know, some of my favorite rodeo idols, really stuck to me and really meant something to me. And to be able to have these young guys come to the house, learning to bullfight, learning to cowboy, ride horses, ranch, just everything that we're doing at the house is really, really neat, because you know, you never know what someone's going through in their life.
Yeah. And
to be able to step in there and just be such a small little impact that, like I said, to save somebody's life going down the wrong path or get them out of that rut that they're in life, I think that just says it all. And for me, that's the standard I want to stay at.
Sherry, you were listening to what Cody was just saying, nodding your head along. You put on 2 or 3 big youth barrel races a year, right? There's some other things that I probably don't even know about, but, you know, talk about your outreach to kids and why that matters to you.
I feel like kids are our future. It's very important for me to try to have those kids have a great weekend, you know, and have a time to spend with their family and, you know, compete and making those memories. And they may not ever go on to be a professional barrel racer, but, you know, trying to have an impact in a kid's life is, I think, very important. And you don't know what, you know, that kid may be going through, and just to be able to have one positive weekend with their family and be able to compete with their horses and you know, meet new people and have friends that they may have forever is very important to me. And I think we all share the same, you know, passion about our future and making an impact in a kid's life. And you know, how you handle yourself out of the arena is so much more important of how you know, compete. And I can win 4 gold buckles, but if I'm a horrible person, that doesn't really mean anything to me. I want to be a good person and a good example for somebody to maybe hopefully make a difference in.
Dusty, you got 10 gold buckles, and every single time you've won one of those gold buckles, you've stood up and you've talked about faith, you've talked about God, you talked about that important element of your life and what it's meant to you. Follow up on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about standards. That's what I try to really live my standard by is the good book, and I think there's so much more to life than what we label it on. Why we're living day to day, and I think your perspective changes, your outlook on life changes. Is just like Sherry was talking about, is being that influent person to others that can help them through whatever it is in their life, or show them that there's a bigger purpose in life. And that's kind of the person who I want to be. I'm thankful and grateful to live this life day in and day out, get to work with some of the best guys in the world. Webster, we work probably 50, 60 performances a year. You know, that's just icing on the cake for me. But to be able to live that life of, you know, true to your faith and walk it out day in and day out, that's the biggest picture for me.
Cody, you said something in the film that I guess I should not have been surprised at, but you made a comment about 180 performances a year, every other day, half the year, you're fighting bulls someplace. What's that feeling like when you know that you've stepped in front of somebody who's about to take a hooking? Maybe you're walking away a little sore because you're the one that took the shot, but you just saved somebody.
Well, the mornings are definitely getting a little longer to get started, but it's you know, it's a grind. It's a battle. It's something that money or fame, I think, is no way to compare of why we do what we do, because there literally is mornings that you got to have your wife help you get out of bed and try to get up and get moving around so you can go back to work that evening. And again, it's got to be for the love of it. There's not enough money, and the aches, the pains, everything that comes with it. But to me, the freedom that we have, you know, getting to be an American cowboy, traveling the country, being our own boss, to me, I think that says it all. You know, when you don't have to answer to somebody, but at the end of the day, when it's time to step in and save these guys, it's such a dangerous sport. There's so much, you know, what ifs that can happen and that we have witnessed to happen. And I know if a guy's is having a bad day, or if your mind's not where it needs to be, or you're just losing that fire, man, you've got to get out of the way, because there's no room for error when it comes to what we're doing and dealing with. And that's just a daily reminder that you better be all in.
Sherry, you're not just a world champion. You're not just a 19-time national finalist. You and your family have created a horse business, a breeding program that is, and I'm a little selfish in saying this because we've got some dineros running around our pasture, that has been pretty impressive and very successful. You work very, very closely with your family in that process. Talk about that.
It's very important to me that, you know, my sister and her family are very involved in the breeding program. My dad's very passionate about his horse program, and, you know, as he used to be a stock contractor, he's passionate about his bucking horses, and you know, just being able to do something that I love, that my family also is involved with, is, you know, been huge for me, and to carry that on and, you know, into the future is pretty cool.
Let me throw one question out for all three of you. The standard of the West, and I made a comment at the beginning of this show, you don't have to wear a pair of cowboy boots and a cowboy hat to live your life by I kind of wish a lot of people in our country would adopt the standard of the West right now. That's just me. We can do what we do and be an example to people outside of our industries, and maybe they could benefit. Am I right in saying that?
I agree 100%. I mean, you look around, there's, just talking about the kids, there's so many kids that don't have that role model, that don't have that influence in their life to make them want to get up and hustle and be better. And for me, the cowboy code, it nails everything right on top of the head.
Dusty, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, that's, you know, one thing I say all the time is, what good is faith if it's never tested? You know, what's good having standards if it's never held up? So I think the giving back and being true to who you are inside but outside of that arena, more importantly, is volume.
Pretty good words from a couple of bullfighters there, Sherry.
Very good words.
Yeah,
yes,
very good words.
I totally agree, and, you know, your word is your honor, and I think that, you know, if we practice that every day, and hopefully the kids of, you know, the new generation learn, you know, because, you know, those guys did it back in the 1870s, and so, you know,
yeah,
it's important.
Sherry Servey, Cody Webster, Dusty Tuckness, thank you to all three of you. Guys, good luck at the National Finals Rodeo. It's not that far away. You'll be working alongside Nathan Harp. It's going to be awesome to have a chance to watch you going to work again. Number 20. We need number 20. That's next on the roster for Sherry Servey. When we come back, we will continue to talk about the Standard of the West. Tom Feller will join us. Thank you for joining us as we highlight the standards of the Justin Boot Company. Well, we come to you every day on Western Sports Roundup from the Justin Studios of the Cowboy Channel. And we're so thankful to have the Justin Boot Company as a part of that program. And we're so proud to be able to welcome a good friend to this special preview of the film, The Standard of the West, Tom Feller, the Director of Event Marketing for the Justin Boot Company. Tom, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Steve.
So you just had a chance to see the film? How'd you feel about it?
It's pretty awesome. It just feels strange sitting on this side of the camera instead of on the other, telling you what to do instead of listening to you.
Yeah. So tell me what you were hoping this film would accomplish, and then I want to kind of tie this all together, everything we've heard over the last hour.
The short film is pretty spectacular. It embodies everything that the Justin Standard of the West meaning is about. Couldn't be more proud to be a part of this team that's bringing this to you. But some of the things we don't talk about in the film are the actual things that implement what Justin does in the world of rodeo in the Western world. We're not just in pro rodeo in the WPRA, we're in the AQHA. We support FFA, all kinds of family events that are where we give back to the community. So the Standard of the West is all encompassing.
The Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund, the Justin Sports Medicine Program, just a couple of the highlights of what you were just talking about.
Yes, Justin Sports Medicine Program will be at our 42nd National Finals Rodeo coming up soon. 42 years under the Justin banner, 30 years under the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund, helping those injured rodeo athletes that can't participate until they're fully recovered. So we step in, give them a hand up, not a handout, but pay their bills until they can get back to rodeoing.
Tom, I want to kind of finish this presentation the way that I started it with Red Stiegel, talking about the Justin family. And in the last segment, I asked Dusty Tuckness and Cody Webster and Sherry Servey about the lessons that you can learn whether you wear a pair of cowboy boots to work or not from the Standard of the West. And you pointed out to me and reminded me before we started this show, the members of the Justin family were not all what we would call cowboys, right?
Yes. When H.J. Justin spoke this now famous line about leaving behind a industry that would uphold the standards and spirit of the true West, that's been over 100 years ago. H.J. Justin was not a cowboy. He was a cobbler who came from Indiana to Texas. And he served cowboys, and that's what the Justin family has done throughout its storied history for over 142 years now. Programs like Justin Sports Medicine Program, the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund, all the things that have the Justins were involved in. But it's not limited to cowboy hats and boots that we've talked about before.
Right.
You think, why should I be excited about what Justin is doing? Because I'm not a cowboy. But the reach is much, much further than that. The Jane and John Justin Foundation, over the past 20 years, has contributed over $105 million to the lifestyle. The Western lifestyle is their main focus. TCU is a second focus, but youth benefits, not welfare, but benefits and well-being being the third, such that the foundation has given $30 million now to Cook's Children's Hospital for their neuroscience program. So, you think, you got to be a cowboy, you have to live out west, or in Sherry's case in Wisconsin, where she and Corey run cattle, but you don't. They're flying children in from all over the world to participate in the miracles that are being worked through Cook's Children's. The Jane and John Justin Tower, surgical tower, going in at Harris downtown. Anybody can go. $3 million for the Fort Worth Mounted Patrol to build a facility that is adequate and modern to house their horses and animals, which has always been another part of the extension of Justin and the name.
You know, we started talking about the standard of the West. We're going to finish talking about the standard of the West. That standard can apply to anybody, whether they're in the insurance business, whether they're farmers, whether they're ropers, whether they're housewives, homemakers, whatever. It's a standard that can apply to all of us, and I know it's a standard you're pretty proud to be able to maintain.
Glad to be a part of it, that's for sure. Fortunate.
Tom, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the film with us. It's a pleasure to have a chance to learn a little bit more about the people that you selected as your standard of the Justin Boot Company.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Tom Feller joining us as we highlight the standard of the West and we celebrate the Justin Boot Company. And we're proud to be able to tell you all about it from the Justin Studios of the Cowboy Channel. Thank you for joining us. On behalf of the Standard of the West since 1879, I'm Steve Kenyon. This has been a special presentation of the Cowboy Channel. For more, visit thecowboychannel.com.